Hey everybody, it's Around the Lens Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach. How are you?
Hello. Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm great. I heard you just came back from Minneapolis. Everything go okay over there?
Oh yeah, everything's perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about.
Okay, great, great. Glad it was uneventful. We'll maybe
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
We'll maybe talk about that during the show. But I'm really excited to have on to the program two amazing guests. One who's a long time Around the Lens alum, former co-host, and just all around awesome guy, Travis
Well,
Keys. Hello, Travis.
welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to be back. Nice to see you guys. You know, some
Yeah,
some have the same amount of hair, and some have a lot more.
that's right. That's right. That would be me. That would be me. In case you couldn't tell. But yeah, great to have you back, Travis. I know you've been up to a lot, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit here momentarily. But I also want to introduce our other guest, who's going to be the main focus of what we're talking about tonight, and his film that he just recently released called Bulls. I'm proud to have Dan Meyer on the show. Hello, Dan.
Hey, how are you, my friend? Nice to be here.
Great to have you, Dan. All right, so for those who are unfamiliar with each of you, why don't you give just a quick little rundown of who you are and kind of what you've done to kind of help understand like what your expertise is. So we'll start with you, Dan.
I started out as an actor many years ago. I the first just a little kind of fun little backstory. The first I moved to Chicago to be an actor, and the first play I ever auditioned for was a little equity theater, Southside Chicago, and it came down to me and Michael Shannon for the lead. And Michael was 16 at the time. Uh, Told him that he was 19. He had dropped out of high school. Anyway, he got cast in leading the play. I got cast in a smaller part. We've been great friends ever since. And now we have a production company together. And so I did that, did some acting, and then got into writing. And now I've directed my first film. And that's Bulls. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Awesome. Great to have you and look forward to really getting into the film and your history with filmmaking. And of course, for those people who may not know you, the one or two who don't, Travis, go ahead and tell us a little about yourself.
Hey, I'm Travis Keys. I'm a filmmaker, a photographer mainly, and a content creator. I was also one of the producers on Bulls, and I've known Dan not as long as Mike, but for much longer than I'd like to admit now. It
Almost
puts
as
me-
long as
I
Mike.
know, I know, and crazy. So it was something that initially that he had wrote, and I'm sure tell you many years ago, and he had finally come around to going back home and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to do this myself. And I came on just kind of just helping him with some little things, and then suddenly I'm like, shit, man, I'm producing this with you.
There you
and
go.
never look back.
Absolutely. And, we'll get into, talking about Bulls and whatnot, but kind of just give us the log line. What is Bulls about?
Bulls is about two brothers from a small town in Indiana, Michigan City, where we uh, shot and set the movie, who own a struggling bar, play on their very mediocre pub dart team, and then get a chance to play for the World Darts Championship.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well, let's kind of get into your history. So you started out as an actor and you were also doing writing and producing. Kind of what kind of got you into the acting world?
Uh, Ever since I was a little boy, like probably about, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there, I knew I was gonna try acting at some point. I just always knew as a little kid I was going to try. But then I never did a play in high school. I didn't study theater in college. I didn't do any of that. And then I moved to Chicago and worked at an art gallery. Was dating this girl. I had apartment, everything. I lost my job, my girlfriend, everything like all in the same week. And
Ugh.
uh, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I said, I don't know, 20 years old. I left college early. So I was like 20 years old. And I was like, well, you always said you wanted to be an actor. So let's give that a shot. And that was it. That's what set me on the path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then you did the acting thing, and then when did you migrate into being a writer?
So it was, years later, I'd done some stuff and I had a bunch of, this is where well, I already mentioned Mike Shannon. So
Name drop.
the name drop it's just going to continue.
There's
Um,
more to come.
Yeah, there's a lot more. So I had started acting and then did some things. I met Paul Rudd pretty early on. Paul's the one that turned me on to darts. I'd never played darts before, and then we started playing darts, and then all of us started playing darts. And this is about the same. I did a movie with Vince Vaughn. Boy, the names just keep dropping. Uh, and and I knew John Favreau from back in Chicago because we had done a play together. We started to, but then he had to drop out because he got Rudy. But they did Swingers. I love Swingers. The Affleck and Matt Damon did Good Will Hunting. I don't know any of those guys. Uh, but I was like, hey, I want to write something for me and my friends like that to do. And we all played darts together. So I wrote Bulls and wrote it pretty quickly. And then there was interest in it, and but it just obviously never came together until like 20 plus years later when we made it in Michigan City.
It was fast tracked.
Yeah. I mean, in Hollywood, that could be
Yeah.
really true in that it takes a long time to get a project off the ground, right,
Well,
Dan?
well. Here's an interesting story. So Mike had I can't remember what agency Mike was at the time, but he told them about Bulls, and he's like he'd been talking about it, and so they were like, can we read it? And he said, yeah. So he gave them the script, and Mike was living in Chicago at the time, and he didn't have the only way you could call him was if you called the theater that he worked at, and then you would leave a message for him, and if he got the message, he would call you back.
Very Bill Murray.
So, uh, so he was like, dude, he called me one. He's like, I go to the theater and I check the messages and I have like six messages from my agents, like, Mike, you have to call us. You have to call us right away. You have to call us right away. He's like, I was like, holy shit, like Martin Scorsese wants me to start his next movie. He's like, I couldn't, like, they were so excited. So they called him up and they're like, what's going on with Bulls? And he's like, I don't know. My friend wrote it. We're trying to get it made with us, and they had to deal with these two actors that had just done, they had some deal at MTV Films. And they're like, we've been looking through all these scripts trying to find like this buddy comedy for them. And we want to do Bulls. And so he was like, so what do you think? I was like, holy shit, I don't know. Like, this is kind of crazy. And so I called up Paul, because Paul Rudd and I were going to play the two. Make sure you know it's Paul Rudd I'm talking about. But I called because we were going to play the two leads. So I called him. I said, so I told him the story. He said, that's amazing. I said, so what do you think? He goes, can I swear? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, on the
I
show.
thought-
Yes,
I
yeah,
thought,
yeah.
I thought you were like part of the story.
Telling the
Yeah,
story,
go ahead,
yeah.
all you want, man.
That was part
Ask
of the
him
story.
Paul Rudd if
Nuts.
he can swear or not. Yeah. No, yeah.
Well, I said, can I swear? And everybody got deathly
It sounded like it was
I didn't know
part
that
of
was
the
Waiting
part
for
of the
the
story.
lead up.
You
Yeah,
were
yeah,
asking
yeah.
me. So
like, no, this is on Disney Channel. So Paul's like, fuck that, man. That's our movie. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, so I was like, yeah, no, fuck that, man. This is our movie. We're gonna do it. And and then there was a long time. I was like, that was a big mistake. That was a really, really, really big mistake. Because like my whole life would have probably changed then. If like these guys had gone and made the movie and so on and so forth. Um, and I will say this that there's a sort of a not really, but a bit of a dodgeball element to Bulls. But I wrote it before dodgeball, so this, when I say, oh, it would have been dodgeball, but I don't know, but it was before that. So, uh, but yeah, but then, so that was, that event. But then, and then the movie didn't get made, and then, but now it did, and so here we are, and it's been a pretty amazing journey.
wow, so it was almost it was this close to being made a while back.
But it would have been without all me and my friends. But none of my
Right.
friends ended up being in it anyway, except for Mike, So
You got too big.
they did.
Yeah, when I was
Well,
watching it, I
yeah.
thought to myself, because there is, quite a few like raunchy jokes and there is some, blue humor in it. I thought to myself, like this would make a great sort of like dodgeball style film if it was taken to that nth degree. of like, far exaggerated, right? Because I mean, I think your film is relatively grounded in sort of, the general story, whereas like a film like Dodgeball is like extreme, right? So I think like if you ever do another darts movie, say take it to the extreme, make it like the Dodgeball of darts films, get
Yeah, that's not,
uh,
that's just not my sense of humor. I
right.
like stuff that's grounded, and in fact, when we started shooting the movie, that's one of the things I said to the actors, and I was like, don't try to be funny. Just let the movie be funny.
Yeah,
Let the situations be funny, but don't try
sure.
to be. Like we're not, big and over the top.
Yeah.
Um,
That's,
that,
I think that's what I love the most about Dan's writing, and I mean, he comes from acting and then he goes into writing and directing, so he has
Hmm.
this kind of clear kind of dialogue and empathy in characters that are really grounded in real life. And even though the moments are kind of can be larger than life, they're grounded in a way that they could actually happen, and everybody could say, "Oh my God, I could totally see that happening." And it's not so exaggerated that it is a dodgeball or it's something about Mary's. It's actually a real life comedy with real people, and that's what I kind of love about his characters. They're actually people that we identify with and live with and that surround us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Now, obviously, you've known Michael Shannon for a long time, and you would worked with him before he was part of Pottersville, which you wrote, and so you had that relationship with him going back to, like you said, you were 16. In the film, obviously, he plays a small but very important role as sort of the father of one of the characters. Was there plans to have him integrated more into the story, or was it always going to be that kind of sliver of him?
so we had a very very small budget, and we
Right.
shot in my hometown. And Mike's been to my hometown once. So when I called, I was like, "Hey, so we're making Bulls. We're making it in Michigan City. Will you be in it?" He goes, I'll be in it, but I'm not coming to Michigan City." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. Well, let's figure out how we're going to do this." But then I did get the idea for him to play that role, and he
Hmm.
was in Chicago doing a play. And I was like, "What if we come to Chicago and shoot your scene for the movie there?" And he goes, "Done." And that was it. So that's how we made that work.
Oh, so you actually wrote that kind of part of the story based on his availability, or he
No, no,
became
no.
that
That
character.
part was always in the movie. That part was always in the movie. But that's when I got the idea. What if he just plays this part? Because it's not integrated with any of the other characters in the film. Like
I get it. Okay.
it's a standalone thing, that opens the film.
Can
So
be
that was
shot anywhere.
that's
Yeah.
perfect. And he's sort of the greatest dart player of all time. That sort of overshadows the whole film. You're like, oh, Alistair Whitten, Alistair Whitten. So it seemed like the perfect fit,
Yeah.
and so that's how it worked out.
Okay. Great. Great. Now let's talk a little bit about you, Travis, and your sort of relationship with Dan here, because when I was looking at the IMDb page, I found out that for Pottersville, that you have a IMDb page, Travis, and that you were a camera crew person on that. Like, did you guys work
So
together on Pottersville?
So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I was out on Pottersville. I did the BTS and photography on Pottersville, but I also did in each of these films, I somehow play in the background a cameraman.
Of course.
So,
Why not?
maybe I think in the next one I'll give you elevated to on-air talent maybe or something like that. But no, I'm teasing. But I mean, I've known Dan for years and years, and we have from the base of everything our love for cinema and movies has always been there. And we've always talked about doing stuff together. So every time he's written something, I've read it. And, when he first did a project called Happy Hour, actually, I met him. We went to the premiere of Locust together out in
yeah.
LA. And that's where I met him when that film came out. And he was in that with Vince Vaughn and Paul was in it. And there was a bunch of people in that film. So that's when I met him initially. It'll date back if you look at when that was made, you'll know how long known Dan. But
Yeah.
I mean, we just became just lifelong friends from there, kind of truly brothers by another mother. And so when he shot a small film, Happy Hour, I kind of assisted and helped whatever I could on that. When he did Pottersville, I went out and worked on that with them. Then Happy Hour came on, and not Happy Hour. That's it.
Bulls.
Happy Hour is the next one.
Well, there
Bulls,
is a happy hour short. I guess
right?
this is the full feature
Correct.
So
length
that's
version
Yeah.
the
of that.
web. He made that one, which is great. And then Bulls came around, and it started out with just reading it and kind of just coming back, and he was like, I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna come up with this stuff. And every day I would like, oh, I'll help with the social media, I'll help with this, and then suddenly I try to help with Indiegogo and helping raise funds and just coming on and traveling out there and being part of the production and the set and becoming a co-producer of it. And it's just it was a what was so great about this is we had so many hurdles during production that Dan was always like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and this is everything's happening for a reason. And we went up against trials and tribulations of writers' strikes and all kinds of different stuff that basically shut us down. And we thought we were going to get a SAG waiver, and it literally 5 days before filming, we they said no, you're not getting the waiver. So we're like, oh, it's all over. But everything happened for a reason, and Dan was able to move a major dart tournament to Michigan City. I mean, like the production values and stuff that we were able to get were huge and amazing, and it was the little engine that could. And we just kept pulling off all these amazing things. And I think the greatest thing about what we did was we pulled together such a small group of people that shot this film, from a camera crew that was a DP, a focus puller, a gaffer, and a best person. I mean, just like three people that, four people that did what you would see on a movie set of like 15, 20 people.
Right.
And everybody worked so hard and worked so well together that we just want to, as many great directors do and producers, they put teams together that are family and work together. And, that's, they live and love what they do. And, it's like, I think sometimes I put it like, well, geez, if I was a woman and I had a kid, I would probably say I'd never want to do that again. But, a year later, you're like, maybe I'll have another one. I think, and we're looking to have another one.
There you
Yeah.
go. Grow that family.
Well,
Uh,
going back to what Travis said too, like we had setbacks. We had to push once because we didn't have the money. We had to push once because of the strikes, and there were other. We brought on this producer first, and that was a train wreck. So we had to find another like producer to sort of run the show for us. So there was just one thing after another. But every time I didn't let it bother me. I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity to make the movie better. And
right.
so I think, I just looked at it that way. I was like, the obstacle is the path. So we're
Hmm.
just going to take this obstacle, embrace it, and going to make the movie better. And then when we finally got to the place where we were locked in, we were making the movie, I was like, then I knew in my heart we're ready. Now we're ready to make the film. And so I look at all those things, like us getting pushed back for this reason and that reason as a blessing, like,
Right.
because it enabled us to make the best movie that we could possibly make.
Absolutely. Now, from the moment you decided you were going to make the film to actually, starting production, kind of talk to me about how long that process took, and also how long did it take to raise the money?
So let me think. We just in that was a year. It took probably about almost 2 years from the time I got the idea to make the movie in Michigan City for us to shoot. A little bit less, a little bit less. You know, um, I don't know. Yeah, just a little bit, 21 months, something like that. So, so we did that, and then what happened was, we there was made a friend in Michigan City, this guy Drew, who edits a newspaper, sort of a weekly paper there, and he'd written an article about Pottersville when it was coming out, and so then I told him that I wanted to make a movie there, and he wrote an article, and people started contacting us, and so that's kind of how we started putting pieces together. Um, and then the raising of the money, we did it all locally. Like one of the first guys that reached out to me owned some bars, and he's like, "I own some bars. You want to shoot here? You want to shoot there?" And he was like, "I think me and my friends could probably finance the whole movie." It was like, "What?" You know. Uh,
Nice.
but it didn't work out that way.
Wasn't that easy?
But he came in for
What a
part of it,
surprise.
and we became really good friends. And then he introduced me to this woman, and her and I became great friends. And she put up a lot of the money for the movie. And then there was a lot of like just like $5,000 here, $10,000 there.
Yeah, we
Uh,
did it. We did an Indiegogo. We did a fundraiser, in a restaurant that people put in like $5,000, $10,000 a piece, and we did so many different groundwork things, and then just never stopped hustling, getting out
Yeah.
there, getting the word out.
yeah.
So a lot of different revenue sources to get the funds necessary to make the film. And then would I wager to guess that some of the on-screen talent was perhaps investors, or maybe a few of the folks who producers were on screen for maybe as an extra.
I mean, like people with speaking roles that I think the two main investors each had like a line or two in the. I think that's right. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, when I
uh,
was out shooting in New Mexico, I shot on a film, and the producers came to visit for a few days, and the filmmakers did put them in like one or two scenes, I think, as extras, as background extras. So,
yeah. You
yeah.
know, the one guy, the guy that reached out to me first, um, we have his beer in the movie, and so we had him in there, and he's in the thing, and he's like, he orders his own beer in the bar, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so just kind of a fun thing for him to do, you know. So yeah, yeah. I mean, and they're all like absolutely fine in the movie. Like nobody, there's no like we had a lot of people in the film that hadn't acted before,
Yeah.
Yeah.
including like our lead and some of our other uh, like
Really?
major parts. Yeah, and you wouldn't know. I mean, you're like I don't think you're like wow, everybody seems to be pretty much on this. I mean, you can tell a couple of people like oh yeah, they got a line here, got a line here, but yeah, for the most part, like
Well, geez, one of the main leads was literally he came in we had an open call audition. He came in and he was worked security at the iron mill down, the steel mill, right?
yeah, yeah,
Wow. He's going to
yeah.
be
And he
the
came in
next
right.
Harrison Ford, Get the janitor from the next film.
But I
So
mean, yeah,
how many
Dan,
days did, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no worries, no worries. I think some of the fun, the Gallion brothers, they had never acted either, and they were
Yeah,
fantastic.
we had
Yeah.
never acted before.
And where were they from? Because I know they were like
They're from
British
my
or,
hometown. No, they're from Michigan City. Those are
oh,
those are
okay.
two, those are two friends of mine that have an LGBTQ heavy metal band
Oh, wow.
in Michigan City. And so Hank, so this is it. So Hank in the script, Hank was always straight. He had a girlfriend. Uh, and but they invited me to come see their band play at Pride Fest in Michigan City, and I was like, wait, Michigan City has a Pride Fest? I had no idea. They're like, oh yeah, come check it out. And I went and I was blown away. It was so great. There was like my little hometown in this big red state, and they have like this Pride Fest. There was all these people there, vendors and uh, you know, families, moms and dads with their kids. And I was like, and that's when I had a real sort of light bulb when I was like, this is an opportunity to do something different. This is an opportunity to do something that has not been done before. And it's a sports comedy with one of the leads is gay, and there's a gay love story in the middle of the film. I was like, this has never been done. And I was like, and we've gotten a lot of pushback about that from the darts community because they think I was trying to make darts gay. And I was like, this has nothing to do with darts. This is representative of small town America.
Yeah.
Like these people, like there's this, there's gay people all over the country. It's not just on the coast. It's like in middle America. And so it was representing that. And but that was what, and I knew when the idea hit me that it was absolutely the right thing to do, but I also saw like this is a risk. Like this is a risk. You're gonna get some shit. You're gonna get some blowback. But it's the right thing to do, and I wouldn't never change that decision in a million years.
I mean, the biggest show on Netflix right now is Heated Rivalry.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're literally
Right.
releasing this at the right moment because you can be like, yeah, no, ride that heated rivalry wave,
Yeah. Yeah.
and get that media. Do you, sorry, Dave, if you had a lead
No,
up,
go ahead.
I was just thinking of a question. Do you think that you could make like what have you seen the kind of the changes? Because I mean, we have this, you know, I remember when I really fell in love with cinema and wanted to become a filmmaker, ended up being a documentary filmmaker. It was the 90s. It was like real indie cinema. You had Kevin Smith, you had Tarantino working on small budget. Now indie cinema means like $15 million or like
Yeah.
$35 million, and you have Brad Pitt, type of thing for the whole movie. Like the idea of what indie cinema now is such a joke.
Yeah.
That gets wide release. Do you like? I guess like in your years, have you kind of seen that evolution? And like, do you think that like, do you think you can make this film 15, 20 years ago, or like say like before the advent of digital, where you're talking about film costs and kind of things like that? Like, do you
Right.
think that like your indie cinema world like has changed in that time?
The film world has changed so much, right? I mean, so like back in the '90s, like Swingers was shot on 16 millimeter, right? Like there was no digital film, like you had you like 16 millimeters was slumming it,
Mhm. Yeah.
so but now you can make a movie on your phone, and you can make it for no money. Where before you had to buy film and you had to have the film process. I mean, like all that stuff costs a lot of cash, So you had this is the big difference, I think, is you had to. Kevin Smith is a great example. I mean, Kevin Smith broke the rules. Brothers McMullen was another one too. You still had to do that stuff, but you had back then you had to have more permission. Like you had to have somebody say like, all right, we'll give you the money to make the movie. You had to have somebody give you permission to do it. Now you don't need permission from anybody. You can go out and make a film with your phone for no money with you and your friends. Like you just can, and that's an amazing thing. I did this interview earlier. I said, I said Oscar Wilde has this great quote. He's like, so many people talk about doing things, but so few people actually do them. And you can now just go do it. You have no excuse. If you want to make a film, you have no excuse not to do it because you can just do it. And the other trap to get caught in, that was a big thing in the 90s. You had to have some star. You had to have some name in your movie to warrant somebody to give you the money for it. But you don't need that anymore. Like you can just go and make it happen by yourself. So that's the thing that I think is the real big difference. And you can distribute the movie by yourself now too. You don't need somebody to distribute it for you.
I think that's the major change you're seeing nowadays is that the process of how do you distribute and how you should make those choices, which are very difficult because, like the old record industry, it was not made for the artist ever to make any money, and they just abuse you. And it's the same for independent cinema, where they will just take your project, and if they don't care about it, they're just gonna roll over it, and it's very hard, and you don't, and they own you basically. When the self distribution way is difficult, but it's kind of crazy that we live in this new kind of age of this new renaissance of creativity. What Dan was talking about is like we've never had more power to create and tell stories than we do now. Because I mean, if you look at what it took to do a huge Hollywood film, have the helicopter shot and the dolly shot and all that. You can fit most of that in a backpack or a car trunk now. From these handheld gimbals to drones to and laptops that can edit Final Cuts, and can do all of that. And so the power to tell stories now is incredible. It's and the distribution of it is a little tough because there is just so much out there, from YouTube to 5 million different streaming channels to really find your niche and get it out there. But there's just more tools than now to navigate, and so it's kind of win and lose all at the same time, and you just got to figure it out and figure out what's best for you telling the story and getting it out there.
That's
Yes.
because I mean that's one of the big questions. I just interviewed the director of Homegrown, a documentary about the lead up to J6 and January 6th and things. And this, the people that are connected, the director, it's like within the documentary world, this normally would be a straight to HBO, like big PBS, something like that.
Yeah.
And he has not been able to find a home for it because of the weird, like the streaming, I mean, obviously there's a lot more politics there,
In the
than,
subject
people.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not getting, but it is, as somebody who also tried to find for my documentary, tried to find a home, and we ended up, thankfully, to financiers and things like that. They just said, put it on YouTube, advertise the hell out of it, and make it free. But that was, we run a nonprofit. What are you looking at as the kind of the release schedule or like release world for it? Like for, is it are you looking to like go to the streaming services?
So it has been released. Dan,
Oh,
can
it
you
has been released.
break
I'm
it
sorry.
down? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You're really exposing yourself there.
yeah, no, I know. This is the absolute most embarrassing thing of literally. I've been in Minneapolis. I've been in Minneapolis. I've been completely off the wall. Like, so like
Yeah.
what? I guess like if you talk me through like what has been your kind of decision making on trying to get it released, and like do you talk to anybody, or what's been kind of the conversation there?
So this we had a very unique sort of situation. So we had a producer out in LA, guy by the name of Brian Lewis, works at Zero Gravity, been around the project, old friend of mine for a very long time. And so when we had a rough cut, he sent it to a friend of his who runs a distribution company, and he sent it to him, and the next day the guy called and said, "Hey man, I watched Bulls. I watched the whole thing. I never watched the whole movie. I usually watch like 5, 10 minutes, but I watched the whole thing. It was a lot of fun." He said, "And we'll distribute it for you, but you should put it out in the market and maybe send it to these sales agents. We've done some deals with them. They're really good guys. They're honest guys. Blah blah. Send the movie to them." So we sent the movie to them, and they got back to us right away. They said, "We'd love to represent your movie." And that was it. Like it was, and one of our producers, Kelsey, she was like, "Well, this doesn't usually happen. Like this is amazing that we have an offer for distribution and an offer for to represent the movie, and we didn't even have to make a call, basically."
Yeah.
But then MPX took it out, and we had multiple places interested, and then we ended up doing a deal with Vertical Entertainment for a theatrical release and a day and date video on demand release.
Mhm.
So the movie's been available. That was released on January 9th, so just over a month ago, or I guess a month and a week or so. Um, and But you can get it on all the platforms now. Like Amazon,
Fandango at home, Amazon, Apple
yeah,
TV, yeah, all of them.
YouTube, Google
Yeah.
Play, Voodoo, all those places. So that's where it is. Um, but yeah, I mean, but even I the distribution part of the process was like the most like sort of difficult and complicated and like disappointing. Just like when we had everything contained within our own team, things went pretty great. We had our ups and downs with things that we couldn't control, but then we did control them and we took care of them. And then once we gave the movie over to somebody else, it's like, well, what are you doing? Like just you know, uh, it's just part of the process. But it's our first time doing this, so you just kind of learn as you go.
Mhm.
Um, but I would seriously consider, our sales agent said something that was really interesting. They said, you did something that most people don't do, is that you knew your audience and you made a movie for them. So we had the first movie about professional darts. Turns out a lot of the people in the darts world do not like the movie because it's not exactly like
Yeah.
what darts is, and they weren't crazy about like the gay element of it. But we
I'm
had
sure that
enough.
I'm sure the bowling community doesn't really love Kingpin either, but it's a great film. So
So, but we had an audience, and we cultivated this audience. We built this audience, and so that's something really important to think about too when you're making your movie. Not so you're just putting something out there. Like, what is this? Who's the audience for this movie, and how who's going to see this? So yeah, I think you just put all those kind of elements together, and then it's just you can build a winning formula for an audience, and and then if you can you can hire a company to put it on the platforms for you, like Amazon or all that kind of stuff. And if you already have that built-in audience and your budget is low enough, there's a way to make money. There's a way to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of the most important things that filmmakers need to understand. If you're creating a film without knowing exactly who you're directing that film towards, then you're essentially spinning your wheels because, especially if you want money or investors to back your project, they need to know like who exactly is this film for? Who is the target audience? Because that revolves your marketing campaign and your promotional campaign and everything revolves around that. Because that's the point, right? Getting people out there to see the film. So finding your audience is extremely important. So kudos to you for knowing that and obviously being able to leverage that.
I think also one of the things we kind of discovered, with distribution companies, like you've, as you know, putting a film together, and Dan will tell you, you wrote this over 20 years ago, but the
Yeah.
actual putting of this film together, and from the day it was really kind of like, I'm going to make this movie to, in the can and ready to get out to a distributor, was over 2 years.
Yep.
And that love and heartache and blood, sweat and tears, The distributor doesn't know any of that, nor care about any of that,
Yeah.
and they're never going to love the film like you did, or put the heart and energy like you are into distributing it and selling that film, unless they really kind of have like multiple stars and they see money in front of their face. They're like, they're just not going to do it. So there's a point where you have to say, all right, are we going to put this out ourselves and be our best sales agents, or are we going to trust someone to do it? And it's kind of you're saying, hey, we're going to give you our baby and you get to raise them, but we did all the work, and it's really kind of tough to see sometimes the way they care for it, the way it's a used salesman kind of thing. Like they make you all kinds of promises and like, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And then suddenly like, we got it. You signed it on, see you later.
No, that's exactly right. It is a bit of a used car salesman mentality because until you sign, they tell you how much they love your movie. They tell you how special it is. They tell you how special you are, how they just want to build this relationship with you, and we just keep making movies. And you're like, well, hell yeah, let's do it. And then you sign the thing, and you're like, what? No. I'm like, yeah, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So you realize how many people are actually BSing you. Is that what you're telling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then then you get that first one under your belt, and you've been through it, and you get wiser and smarter, and you know how to do the next one, and the BS they're going to feed you, and you can play the game, and yet unfortunately it is a game, and I think that's where the excitement is building your own audience and stuff like that. Obviously Kevin Smith made some great early films. I don't think he continues to make early films, but he has an audience, and they love his films. Like he makes another Jay and Silent Bob. He has a built-in audience that are all going to see it. He has built his audience. He can put it out there. And he's that model.
Which I believe he has another one he's working on right now. So, yeah.
But I mean, he knows, he doesn't make. I mean, that's something I think why he's able to continue to exist as a indie filmmaker, or a filmmaker. Just there's no reason to put. Is that he knows he can make $14 million and through his road shows and through everything else, and then that's how much he makes the film for. And so
which always amazes me, because I think seeing him live and talking, he is such a great storyteller, but doesn't translate to the films. Like I can sit and listen to him tell stories for hours.
I'm his audience. I love his films. His worst films are my favorites.
Tusk is up there for you, huh?
Yeah, he's also super. I've interviewed him a bunch of times.
Yeah,
and like
he's incredible.
He's a fantastic interview. You can ask him one question and he goes for 45 minutes.
I mean, when he talks about Prince and his other stuff, I mean, he can listen to him for hours on his experience in life.
Yeah. We gotta get him on the show. We just be like, and I'd like to introduce our guest, and he'll just
trying to schedule Kevin Smith is a different story, though. So anyway,
come on, you use those angles, use those connections, Zach.
Anyway.
Awesome. So let's get into a little nitty-gritty details that us nerds are always interested in when we talk about film. What did you shoot it on? How long did you shoot it for? And what was kind of like your biggest challenge on set?
We shot it on a Sony Venice. We shot for 17 days. Did you ask me the budget? Is that what you
I did not ask you the budget. You don't have to reveal that if you don't want to.
Your
but
damn business, Dave.
I know. How dare I?
He said one of the greatest hurdles, I think, on this.
No, what was your biggest challenge, like on set?
Challenge.
Like, was it the weather? Was it getting locations? Were people showing up sick? Were you getting kicked out of places? I know you have a big tournament scene. What was kind of like, were you getting kicked off the beach because you were shooting people in their underwear? I don't know. What was it like? On the
I would tell you that was sort of the beauty of all of it. It's in the arc of the film sort of match like what happened, because as the guys are like, don't think they can, have any chance to win the World Darts Championship, and the town starts to rally around them, all kind of stuff. That's kind of what happened with us with movie. Making movies an impossible thing, and the town rallied around us and helped us make it possible. So we didn't have any issues with this.
We almost did get kicked off the beach, though.
What's that?
We almost did get kicked off the beach.
Oh, that one guy, yeah.
The one thing you brought up almost did happen. They were sitting in the sand dunes, and a guy came over not happy. And sure enough, I'm going to defuse it. They're shooting while I'm defusing this guy. And sure enough, the people in town that actually knew us and helped us came over and talked the guy down. He was like, oh, you can't sit in the dunes. You can't sit in there.
Yeah, it was a scene where they were meditating. It was a scene where they were meditating, looking over the beach where this guy showed up. It was like, that's sacred dune grass you're sitting. Like, you're out of your mind. What was we had like you know the scene where they go to the park and hear the guy play the song, out there, Hank and
Hmm.
go, and the guy plays the song. Like that guy showed up that day in a mood, and
Oh,
that was like he was like, I'm leaving, I'm not doing this, I'm blah blah blah, threatening to leave,
wow.
and just really upset. And but I had, and everybody was just like, holy shit, man, like this whole thing is like this scene is not going to get made. But
Yeah.
I sort of I just realized the guy was anxious and nervous and insecure. And I just was
Yeah.
like, some just people deal with that stuff in different ways. And this is how this guy was dealing with it, was just sort of by lashing out and being, I mean, he was just like, you guys are so unprofessional. We're like, okay, like, sure, we're being unprofessional. Like we had like such a professional. We finished early pretty much every day. Like
Oh, nice.
we knew what we were doing. We were a well-oiled machine. And he just showed up with this attitude of like, what are we? You're wasting my time. You're blah blah. But I just went over and talked to him and smoothed it out. And it took some time, but yeah, I mean, like that was one thing where you're just like, that was really the day that we're like, oh, are we going to finish our day? Because he was just like, I'm not doing this. And so that was a little bit tough. The guys that were the Gallion brothers, um, we had, because of our pushbacks and stuff, we had rehearsed for like 2 years, like
Right.
not every day, but we had time, we would rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. And then they showed up their first day of shooting and they were completely, it was crazy. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't walk. They couldn't talk. They couldn't do anything. I was like, "What's going on, guys? Like, we've been hurt. Like, do you not want to do this?" And they're like, but they were still like anxious and insecure and
Yeah.
panicked. And so we all went upstairs. We walked through everything. We figured it all out. And then they told me later, they're like, all those days rehearsing, what would have helped is if one day you'd said, "This is what it's like your first day on a movie set.
Mm, right.
This is
Yeah.
what the terminology is. This is what this is. These are what sides are." When somebody's like, "Oh, your sides are over there," we're like,
Hmm.
"What? Like, what does that mean?"
Crafty? What's crafty?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're like, God, if we had just known what all this stuff was. So, but it was
They
mostly
were just
little
overwhelmed, basically.
people just
Oh,
overwhelmed.
first day,
You
yeah,
know,
you don't know what to expect, and it's just it's a whirlwind. I
it
will
was,
tell you the one thing that was great about Dan on this is is obviously this was his first time directing, and and one of the greatest things he said to me is like, I'm not going to let this film fail because I wasn't prepared, and
Hmm.
he literally just broke down scenes. He thought of color. He thought of how he's going to do things. I mean, he went into that film so prepared and so ready to walk that I've worked on films before. I've never like, oh, we got done early again. Well, what should we do now? It's like, I mean, it was just like everybody that worked on it was so, I mean, there was such a limited team, but everybody worked so well together. And it was really, it was one of those things like everybody's saying, Dan calls him up now. Is like, yep, we'll come back. Whatever you do, we'll be back for the next one. I mean, he just created a
Hmm.
great environment for people, whether it was an actor or for a crew. And he created a great set for people to do what they do best.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the idea that you would end a day early or end earlier in the
Yeah.
day. That's a pretty foreign concept on most movie sets. I know when I shot mine, it was basically 12s every single day, 5 days a week. But no, that's good. I mean, that definitely shows that you were prepared and you knew what you were doing. Story wise, I did have one question about the female love interest for the other brother.
yeah.
So you introduced her somewhat late in the plot, and I'm just curious, was that always that way, or was that something you added on because you wanted to have a hetero love interest as well as the homosexual love interest?
No, no, no. Like I said, when I first wrote the script, both of the guys were straight.
Right.
Like it wasn't until I decided to shoot in Michigan City and I went to that thing that it was, and that character. So what had happened was I was always trying to figure out. This is a pretty cool story. I was always trying to figure out what happens to Austin the night before the big match. Like him and his brother have this sort of blow up, and what happened? He leaves the apartment, and I had written so many different scenes of what that was going to be like. And then one day, this was many, many, many years ago, and that character's name is Angelina. And I was in Chicago with Mike, and I don't know if you guys know Chicago at all. We were at the Old Town Ale House, which was like our favorite bar there. We were having a couple of beers at that bar. And then we left, and he went one way and I went the other. But as we were parting ways, a cab pulled up, and this beautiful girl gets out of this cab, and it's like midnight, and she gets out of the cab, and I'm walking down the street, and she's walking next to me, just like in the movie, and she looks at me, and I'm looking at her, and she looks at me, and then she says to me, "Do you want a walking partner?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, "Do you want a walking partner?" And I said, she goes, "Well, you're there and I'm here, and it's just this awkward kind of thing. I figured we could just walk together." And I was like, "Okay." And she was just gorgeous. And her name was Angelina Miles. And so we started talking, and she had just moved to Chicago. And she was like, "I'm looking for some friends." And I literally did the scene from the movie. And then I was like, "Do you want to go get a drink somewhere?" And we went back to the Old Town House, and we stayed there until like they closed. And I took her outside, and she got in a cab, and she said, I mean, it was just an amazing night. It was so great to meet you. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, "It's great to meet you too." And then the cab took off. And that was that. And then like 2, 3 weeks later, I go to the bar and she's there. And she's like, "I've been coming back to this bar over and over again to see you because that night was so amazing." But first of all, let me go back. So when I got back home that night, I was like, "That's the scene. That's what happens to Austin, is what just happened with me and this girl."
Mm.
It was like that's it was because it was just magic, you know? And so and then she showed up at the bar, and then we had a relationship, but it was brief, it didn't work out. But it was like a gift. It was just like I was trying to find this scene for Austin in the movie, and then it just dropped right into my lap, you know? It was like that's what it is. He leaves the apartment and meets this beautiful woman on the street, and that's it, you know? But in the film I set it up, like where he says like I've dated most of the girls around here and blah blah blah, and then she's like I just moved here, and but she sort of matches him, beat for beat, throughout their couple of scenes together. And that's one of the great things about what Kelsey did in the movie is that she only has those two scenes to really make that whole relationship feel like it could be real, and it
Yeah.
feels totally real, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. For those of us who are not into the darts world, right? Like I've played darts in terms of I've thrown a dart at a dartboard, but I've never played it like an actual game where you score and everything like that. You don't introduce sort of the rules of darts until really almost the end of the movie. Was there any consideration or thought to like, hey, maybe we should, ease in the folks who aren't familiar with the way darts is played and kind of give them a rundown of the darts game itself in terms of how it's played and scored, like earlier on in the film, or was it always the intent to like,
Isn't the
no, we're
beginning of the
making
film
this for
open up that
people
way?
who know how to play darts, and if they don't know how to play darts, that's their loss.
I think the beginning of
So
the film is the it
so
introduces
like
it.
the first draft of the movie was Alistair Whitman, who's like the greatest darts player in the world, not playing darts, but doing sort of like an
That's
information
right.
thing, like you would find like PBS or something, like giving the history of darts, and it went through the whole history of darts, and then explained the game of cricket, blah 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 blah, and it was literally like a 2-page monologue, and then I was like. And so then I did the rewrite when I was going to shoot Mr. I was like, there's no way I'm starting my movie with like a 2-page monologue with some guy explaining all this stuff. So I was like, he's the greatest darts player in the world. Let's see him throw darts. Let's see him make the greatest, dart throw in the history of the game. And so I was like, so what we'll just do is we'll have the announcer talk about the game. He's closed this through this and this through this, and they have these many points and they have these many points. So they need to. So it was just enough information to have an idea of like what they need to do to win. And I was like, and then we'll catch the audience up as we go along, you know. And that was the reasoning behind it.
Okay, cool, cool. So you have another movie coming out, your Happy Hour. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is all about?
No, it's not coming out. It's just something that
You're working on. I'm sorry, it's in
just
production or in
we
pre-development.
record
What's the terminology? What would you call
pre-production.
it?
Pre-production.
Yeah,
Pre-production.
just,
Okay.
just in the beginning stages of putting this
I guess
together.
that this is actually the development stage.
What's that movie about, or what's the
The-
general idea, or like how is it different from this movie in terms of what you're going for as a director? Like, is it another kind of buddy comedy, or is it go into a different vein?
It probably won't surprise you. It is a buddy comedy.
Hey, if you're good at something, right?
Yeah. Um, but it's this is something that I will also be acting in,
Oh,
and
great.
my character is going through a divorce. Uh, my ex-wife has a lot of money. I had a successful career as a writer, but that has like petered out, and she's basically left me with nothing at this point. It's a very contentious divorce, and so I go and move into staying with my best friend and his who's a struggling out of work actor in his 8 by 10 foot apartment. And then we have to navigate sort of like how to get the rent and how we're going to coexist here and just figuring out life in general as like two middle-aged guys whose lives are kind of going nowhere. And then there's a twist that happens and takes the whole movie in a completely different direction.
Okay, great, great. And is that something you think will be out, or could, obviously you're in the very, beginnings of it, but do you see that being another couple of years, obviously, to, got to raise the
You know,
funds, do everything and
zero clue. We're looking to shoot in the fall, and
oh, this
then
fall.
yeah, this fall
Wow.
coming.
Okay, that's great.
And then we'll we'll go through the same path that we did with Bulls, but this time we're way ahead of the game because we already have all these relationships and connections with people and sales agents and distributors and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, that's great. Mike
yeah,
Shannon coming back.
he's written into the script.
All
So
right. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
I love, by the way, his lead. If you his the two most recent films Shannon has done, or he did. I have to pull back up his page. It
we
was
did
like Death by
Nuremberg.
Lightning and Nuremberg, and then it's a great lead in. We're like very serious, and then yeah, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Well,
a
as we're
good.
nearing kind of the end of our show, I want to make sure I got, one last sort of take from you because you are a filmmaker and this is a very prevalent and also, popular thing to talk about. Earlier you were saying like all you need is a phone to make a film nowadays. Well, some would say you don't even need a phone, right? What I'm talking, of course, about is the explosion of AI created video. We've recently I think SAG made a very strongly worded letter towards the producers of Seed Dance, which is another large language model and producer of that, where he had, famously, we had a Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise fighting over Epstein. So, what are your thoughts on kind of AI and its sort of, I would say, impact on the filmmaking industry from your perspective?
Let me say, that I've watched that clip a few times of that fight between those two, and it looks like crap. I thought, like it doesn't look like a real fight. It doesn't look, it's a cool background, but it doesn't. I just think it looks kind of trashy. Like I hear all this like, oh, it's the end of the film. I was like, if that's the end of the film business, then good Lord, there never was a film business. Like it just looks kind of silly. I don't know. I'm a Luddite. Travis could tell you this, but I saw that thing, and I was like, that doesn't feel like at this point in time, like somebody's going to go pay money to see that as opposed to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like it's
Yeah.
just I don't
Well,
know.
of course, that's what everyone says. This is the worst it's ever going to be, right? So it's like every, few months there's some new technological revelation, and it's like that much better than the way it was before. So, but it doesn't sound like you're worried about it.
I'm not worried about it, but we also have an administration that's like we're just going to take all the rules off of AI and let them do whatever they want, which isn't probably the best place to be for anything. There
I
should be
uh,
some
I think
regulation.
I wear a slightly different hat on it, but I certainly yeah I think like wow
What's your take
this
on it,
is
Travis?
this is how far it's come, and it gets better in waves that are kind of unfathomable. It gets better and better and better, and it is certainly being having been head of American Photographic Artists, the president, and I know photographers are extremely scared of AI right now. You're looking at where I can take just standard pictures of someone of their face and put them in headshots that are incredible in different lights and different scenarios. Product photography, advertising is taking a huge hit, and anything that's not, I think, at this point, journalism or a wedding or a sports driven, where you have to be at that event taking that picture, is in a serious like it's already, I've seen the difference, and people are leaving the industry, and it's only going to gravitate to film. What I do have hope for is the human flaw and the stuff that that really makes things emotional and you attach yourself to, computer hasn't figured that out and doesn't know how to do that. And it's in those real moments and the real mistakes and the real things in life that bring that honesty to it. And I think that humans just need to be better storytellers. And like anything, I think there's good and bad. And when I grew up, it was like, wow, it's like, if you had a green screen and a matte painting, you can make a world that didn't exist. Those are the tools what AI is. They can be used for good or bad, and using incredible tools to tell a story. So there'll be good and bad with it, and it really kind of sees where we'll go with it. But it's why now it's the wild, wild west, and it's just going to go all over the place and kind of be unfiltered, and we're going to see wild things all over the place. And that's the scary thing, is you don't know what's real anymore. I have seen some stuff that is so scarily real that it's frightening.
Yeah, the one area where I've seen it's like if it doesn't take away from someone's creativity, right? If it only enhances their capabilities, if it's just a tool like that leverages their ability to do things quickly and easily and cheaply, then I'm like, I'm not against it outright. Like I've seen some people who have done things where they just literally film themselves in their living room, walking from left to right and opening a cupboard, and now they're on a space station, floating through space, and that's all done through just
Yeah.
AI, right? So there is some hope there that maybe it won't be used for the death of the industry, but
But now you're also seeing commercials. I mean,
yeah,
pure full AI commercials where there are no actors and no stuff like that, which is kind of scary. I mean, you
it
see,
is.
there's that one with the truck insurance one where it's like, oh, they drive the truck off and the kids, but I didn't. I took the kid out of the truck in time. It's like, and that's a full AI commercial. So I mean, it's out there, and a lot of people don't know it.
Right. Right. That's the thing. It's like, will the audience care or no? And if it's
Yeah.
good enough to their eyes, then it doesn't matter. Like I was just listening to this marketing podcast, and they were talking about that Coca-Cola commercial that everybody derided that was made with AI. It didn't affect Coca-Cola's stock or brand at all. Like, in fact, it was seen very highly by the general public in terms of something that they could enjoy. So while we nitpicked and said like, oh, there's the trucks are messed up and you know, the birds are missing legs or whatever, right? That you pick out because it's AI. The general public doesn't care. Majority of them
I'm also
anyways.
hoping that it'll bring back, like just like records and 8-track is like that pure love of analog, where suddenly there's like I got a headshot and 100% no AI, 100% no. It's like there will be a badge of like things like this was not fake, this is 100% real, and that will be the badge that people will want, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking time out to talk about your movie and
Thank
filmmaking
you.
in general. Really loved having you on the show and getting to geek out about that. Before we let you go ahead and kind of again tell us where we can find your movie online.
Yeah, the movie's available for video on demand to buy or to rent, probably for the next month or so before it goes to AVOD on. Well, maybe I should have said that, but on
Apple, Amazon,
yeah,
Fandango at home, YouTube,
YouTube.
Google Play, all of them.
I would say, as someone who just bought it on Fandango, I thank you for releasing it at $14.99. One of the most annoying, as a physical media lover, but the way that releases are done now, where it's just like you have a film and goes in theaters and then basically immediately drops, but it's like $29.99 to even rent it or whatever.
Yeah.
And used to be able to go buy the DVD for 15-20 bucks or whatever, and then you own it. Thank you for releasing it at a reasonable price. Especially for indie. I mean, one of the big problems is indie cinema is that you're taking a risk on these films, and if the buy-in is $30, never, and it's not a theater experience, it's not a whatever, it's just a rental or it's whatever. It's really tough. I feel like I'm seeing a lot less indie film because of that, because there's like, if I missed it in the theater, then now the option is for the next year, basically, is either hopefully it gets on one of my streaming networks I pay for, or yeah. But anyway, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Well, to be clear, we did not set the price. That
No,
had
I
no,
know.
that had
I'm
nothing to do
just
with
saying in
us.
general. Thank you to whoever
I
that
knew
is,
Dan
and
was
thank
going to
you
come clean on
as the
that one.
filmmakers.
Yeah.
I would have done it at 40. Yeah.
No, we would have probably, I
Yeah.
would probably done it less. Like if we had
Yeah.
released it
No, I know.
ourselves, we could pay $10,
Yeah, no.
But
Well, that was to buy it, $15 to buy it. So like
yeah,
I
yeah,
own
yeah.
it forever. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't like to rent things, but yeah.
I rented it
Very good.
on Amazon Prime.
Yes,
Your
yes.
commitment is not there.
You know
I
what?
have to. I also have to make
Honestly,
up
I
for
don't see
not
movies
seeing
more
it.
than once most times, I'll see it when it comes out and then maybe 10 years
I'll
down
be
the
I'll
road.
be honest.
So
I almost left the chat as soon as you said that.
I have
I
to
don't
make
blame
up for
you.
the not knowing that it was released. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Travis, you got anything to throw out there before we say goodbye?
No, it was a pleasure seeing you guys, and hope to guest with you again sometime soon. It's always been fun to, to chat with you guys and hear your. I look forward to hearing what you think of the film, Zach.
I can't wait to watch it. So
Always great to have you back, Travis.
Maybe we'll come back. Maybe you'll have us back after the next one.
By all means, you're always welcome back.
Awesome.
Definitely keep us involved, especially if you happen to. Well, it doesn't seem like you need a crowdfunding campaign for it, but again, if there was that.
Oh, I think it's always good to throw. You never count any of your options out. I'll put it that way. Crowdfunding can be that thing that is a slush fund or an important thing. Every little bit helps with making a movie.
Indeed.
And also sometimes it's just good to get the word out and and have that's how you kind of build your audience and keep them involved.
Yeah, absolutely. No, doesn't hurt to get the buzz out there in any way. Zach, for your work in Minneapolis, do you think we'll be seeing that online soon?
I've been posting every couple of days. Wait, what? You didn't know it's already online? Anyway, it's already been released. No, it's
I rented it.
News for free. VC.news. You can go to my newsletter. I have a piece of Progressive magazine coming out soon.
Wonderful.
As well. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, great. And as always, you can go to aroundthelens.com to find this and every other episode we've ever done, as well as articles and all the fun stuff that we do for this discussion forum. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Zach, for being on our program. And as always, tune in each week for a new episode. I'm David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, Roundtable Discussions, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
We'll see you at the movies.
Wait, see you at the movies. Yeah, I like that.
On Vudu. Yep.
On Vudu, yeah. On Tubi. You'll see
I'm standing by. It's Voodoo. I don't care about this Fandango at home. That's way too long. It's still voodoo.com.